quien es el jefe inspector del Ministerio de Salud de Surinam.
Good afternoon. Welcome to panel 5. We are going to moderate this meeting. I would like to introduce my right side, Mr. Jose Peña Medina. He is a pharmacist and director of the National Executive from, I'm sorry, it's Spanish, so I'm translating what I'm looking for the National Medicines Authority of El Salvador. Yes.
Bien, muchas gracias por asistir a este panel. Este panel tiene una gran importancia ya que habla de cómo fortalecer las capacidades regulatorias de las autoridades, considerando que no todas las autoridades son del mismo tamaño, tienen los recursos, el personal, y es necesario poder poner todo nuestro esfuerzo para poder fortalecer las capacidades. Vamos a tener la perspectiva del sector industrial y vamos a tener también la perspectiva del sector regulatorio. En este panel lo que vamos a tratar de hacer es dar una idea de los modelos de regulación, las mejores prácticas en las diferentes regiones y poder adaptar los modelos para hacer una mejor regulación. Como invitados a este panel tenemos a Alfredo Antía. Él es doctor en Medicina y Tecnología Veterinaria. Actualmente es presidente de EFA, de Laboratorios de Uruguay, y es miembro del Consejo Directivo de la Cámara de Industrias del Uruguay. Asimismo, es el presidente de ALIFAR, Asociación Latinoamericana de Laboratorios Nacionales de Industrias Farmacéuticas de Latinoamérica.
Next, we have Mr. Thomas Schreitmüller, Global Head Regulatory Policy of F. Hoffmann de la Roche in Germany, and co-chair of Pharma Regulatory and Biologics Working Group. Thomas is a biochemist. In 1989, he joined Roche, holding various positions in the biotech area, while since 2010, he is globally engaged in regulatory policy activities, including the representation of his company at EFPMA and Pharma committees and working groups within LATAM being his favorite region.
Tenemos también a la doctora Marta Rosales Granera. Ella es nicaragüense, es la directora de la Dirección Nacional de Regulación Farmacéutica del Gobierno de Nicaragua.
Dr. Virginia Asin Osberg is the Director of Surveillance, Disease Prevention and Control at CARFA, the Caribbean Public Health Agency. We have also Dr. Martin Harvey, who we have seen earlier. He is a lawyer by background and has been with the European Medicines Agency since 1995. He has various policy, communication, and management roles, and is currently with the International Affairs teams. And finally, we have Dr. Charles Preston, is an advisor on regulatory system strengthening for Medicines and Other Health Technologies at PAHO WHO, based in Trinidad and Tobago.
Como un marco contextual de introducción, podemos decir que el desarrollo de las capacidades reguladoras de las autoridades cada vez tiene más importancia debido a muchos factores internacionales, como lo son la manufactura global, como lo son los medicamentos subestándar o falsificados, así como también la resistencia antimicrobiana. Y es importante saber lo que mencionaba anteriormente sobre que todas las autoridades tienen diversos niveles de desarrollo y crecimiento de recursos económicos, humanos, para poder realizar la titánica labor de regular. Por tanto, en esta sesión trataremos de ver las perspectivas de los mejores modelos de regulación y poder buscar métodos y alternativas que nos sean de utilidad en la labor reguladora. En esta sesión tendremos primero la visión de la industria a través de Alfredo Antía de Alifar y Thomas Tracmuller de Fifarma, y posteriormente tendremos tres experiencias regulatorias, la de Nicaragua, la del Caribe, ¿verdad? Y luego tendremos la experiencia de EMA y una nota conceptual por medio de Charles de lo que maneja la PAHO y la WHO. Les recordamos a los panelistas que tienen 10 minutos, que en la parte de atrás verán unas pancartas donde se les indicará el tiempo restante y que su tiempo ha terminado. Preguntas serán al final de todas las exposiciones y tendremos el debate. Sean bienvenidos y comenzamos. Primero quisiera llamar al doctor Alfredo Antía.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes a todos. Espero que esta charla no les aumente el sueño, esa suerte de estado postprandial que nos viene cuando estamos un poco cansados y tenemos la pancita llena. En primer lugar, agradecer la oportunidad en nombre de Alifar, en mi nombre personal, en nombre de la Asociación de Laboratorios Nacionales del Uruguay que presido, la oportunidad de estar aquí, expresarme, contarles un poquito cuál es nuestro punto de vista con respecto a esto, pero antes que nada agradecer a las autoridades de la red PARF y particularmente a los organizadores de esta reunión y agradecer la calidez con la que nos han recibido y el encanto que tiene el pueblo salvadoreño expresado en cada una de las personas que me ha tocado contactar. Tengo algunos amigos salvadoreños y yo pensé que casualmente eran cada uno de ellos seres hermosos, pero resulta que acá son hermosos todos. De modo que, en primer lugar, quería consignar eso. Y rápidamente yendo a los contenidos, supongo que esto debe funcionar así. Nos toca hablar sobre el tema del fortalecimiento y vaya si este tema es importante y este tema es importante hoy, aquí, en este lugar, porque no es casualidad que estemos en El Salvador. Aquí hay un trabajo de equipo, aquí hay una dedicación, un compromiso, aquí hay un amor enorme por lo que se viene logrando y por lo que nos están mostrando. Recordemos que las Red PARF anteriores se han hecho en ciudades, bueno, la anterior fue en Ciudad de México, antes fue en Canadá, creo que la anterior fue en Brasil. Es decir, estamos hablando de países que han dado pasos en virtud de sus capacidades y de sus posibilidades. Y esto nos demuestra, y creo que está muy bueno para lo que se va a venir después, cómo un país que se dice pequeño, pero que es gigante logra dar pasos en el sentido del fortalecimiento de su actividad regulatoria. Y esto tiene el nombre, permítanme, ¿no?, pero quiero nombrar solamente 3 personas que conozco: a la señora presidenta, que no sé si está por acá, Leonor de Acosta, al doctor José Coto, que lo hemos visto al pie del cañón en esta actividad, y a mi querido amigo Mario Ancalmo, que preside una de las empresas más exitosas del país, porque nos consta que esto de la regulación y de la certificación es algo que se obtiene en la medida que se comprenda, se armonice la actividad privada con la actividad pública. Y es en los países donde esa armonía se logra que de algún modo la comunidad se beneficia. Y vaya si se beneficia, si acá se puede decir que como corolario de todo esto, y como nos lo han mostrado acá, los productos en El Salvador son seguros, son eficaces y ante todo son accesibles. Como lo dice el loguito de la Dirección de Medicamentos, medicamentos a tu alcance, que debe ser el primer móvil que nos convoca a todos y el eje de las políticas sanitarias de nuestro país. Entonces, ¿cómo avanza esto? Buah. ¿Quién me auxilia con esto? Bueno, la tecnología parece que no es lo mío. Bueno, el fortalecimiento como decíamos recién, de las agencias nacionales es una política que nosotros la entendemos como una política de Estado y que la vemos desde el ángulo industrial que nosotros ocupamos. Hoy de mañana muchos de ustedes vieron un video que presentamos de lo que es Alifar, el peso que tiene nuestra agremiación. Abastece casi el 60% del volumen farmacéutico que se consume en los países de Latinoamérica y emplea casi 200.000 personas en forma directa en estos laboratorios afiliados a estas plantas. Estamos hablando de un valor, como nos gusta decir, que va más allá del interés de las empresas, de la propiedad de las empresas, sino obviamente de los trabajadores que acabo de nombrar, 15% de ellos técnicos, profesionales, graduados en nuestras universidades, pero más que nada del país, porque estos productos son los que consumen nuestros compatriotas de Latinoamérica. De modo que vaya así la importancia de la interrelación y particularmente el ángulo de la regulación farmacéutica desde el concepto de que lo que se regula ya no es el producto final, sino que se regula un proceso que nace en el inicio y que termina en la caja y que después sigue en la farmacovigilancia. Es decir, de todas las etapas. Y estamos hablando de una complementación que hace crecer tanto a los técnicos reguladores como a los técnicos de nuestras empresas. Bueno, la importancia de la calificación, se los digo yo como uruguayo, donde estamos en el escalón de aquellos, creo que son 17 países que tienen alguna base jurídica o tienen buena base jurídica y estructura como para implementar aspirar a esta certificación. El avance en las Américas ha sido importante, tenemos 8 agencias calificadas, tenemos 17 países que están con chance de serlo si se cargan las pilas, y después tenemos otros 14 países que algunos tienen mejor condición y otros no la tienen. Pero claramente nuestro compromiso como asociación industrial es lo que hoy El Salvador nos está mostrando, caminar en este sentido. Bueno, esta es una oportunidad de sumar, como decimos ahí, es un proceso clave que genera una dinámica regional de mayor competitividad. Claramente vemos que la mayoría de las empresas instaladas en los países con autoridades reguladoras de referencia se han desarrollado en el mercado regional y ese es uno de los objetivos de nuestra gremial y de nuestras empresas, es decir, lograr una mayor penetración de los mercados latinoamericanos. Como se dice ahí, facilitarán los estándares regulatorios, impulsarán el crecimiento y la cooperación, y mucho más ahora en estas instancias de encuentro, como es la de la Red PARF que estamos celebrando hoy, casi 20 años después de la primera. Bueno, las recomendaciones calurosas nuestras son las que ya dijimos. Trabajar en forma conjunta para lograr mejores estándares. Y si bien algunos tenemos algún atraso en cuanto a esto, permítame contarles que, por ejemplo, en mi país, este mes que viene, nosotros tenemos una comisión de control de calidad que va a cumplir 50 años de vida. Es decir, que hay una complementación entre el público y el privado, porque esa comisión es un organismo público de derecho privado, pero lo que hace es fiscalizar todos los medicamentos que hay en la plaza. Y eso fue una iniciativa de la industria, de lo que hoy está representado acá en quien me sigue, FIFARMA, es decir, los laboratorios multinacionales y los laboratorios nacionales. Fue una tarea cooperativa, como casi todas las tareas que emprendemos en materia regulatoria a nivel de país para tratar de potenciar el desarrollo. Y vaya si ha sido útil. Les cuento que en Uruguay casi el 90% de los medicamentos que se consumen son fabricados en el país. De modo que tenemos instrumentos como para desarrollarnos y tenemos el impulso de ser parte de estos países que hoy están, digamos, en la lista de espera, pero que se comprometen a hacer los cambios necesarios para salir adelante. Y para ayudar a los demás países a salir adelante y a tener dentro de sus posibilidades de complementación, obviamente respetando lo que son las soberanías de los estados, lo que son las capacidades y las posibilidades de unos y otros, pero entendemos que es clave desarrollar lo más posible esta lógica de interrelación entre el regulador y el regulado. Y permítanme, para culminar, porque ya vi las señas que se hacen por ahí, pero esta mañana en el desayuno comentábamos un tuit que publicó el Papa Francisco a las 5:30 AM, hora de El Salvador, aparece aquí y dice: la salud no es un bien de consumo, sino un derecho universal. Unamos nuestros esfuerzos para que los servicios sanitarios sean accesibles a todos. Creo que en estas palabras se resume el objetivo, el móvil, el norte que debe conducir ya no solo la actividad regulatoria, las políticas públicas de nuestros países referentes a los temas sanitarios que tienen que ver con la accesibilidad. Vivimos más, vivimos mejor, en buena medida porque también hay medicamentos. Y ahí es una bandera que tenemos que levantar todos, los que los han innovado, los que hemos podido lograr reproducir productos de primer nivel y acercarlos al consumo. Déjenme terminar solamente con esta frase. Preparando una intervención que tenía que hacer, me dio por mirar la expectativa de vida en mi país y la relacioné con fechas que tenían que ver conmigo. Entonces, por ejemplo, me fijé cuando nació mi abuela, que fue aquella señora amorosa que me crió en los primeros años de vida, la expectativa de vida para esa señora que nació en 1884 era de 41 años. Uruguay en el año 2015 tiene una expectativa de vida para las señoras de casi 79 años y esto, que puede resumirse como en aquella frase de Barack Obama, es el mejor tiempo para vivir, porque tenemos que mirar el avance de la humanidad en virtud de estas cosas que estamos diciendo. 20 años atrás, esta red PARF daba sus primeros pasos. Hoy hay una cantidad de agencias con la certificación del mejor nivel. Bueno, el tiempo va pasando y pasa rápido y esto se traduce en mejoras para la gente, en accesibilidad, en posibilidades de salud y ese es el objetivo, como lo dice el Papa Francisco en ese tuit de hoy. Era lo que les quería transmitir. Buenas tardes, gracias.
Thomas, can I invite you on the stage?
Good afternoon. How are you? Good, I hope so. I had a double espresso before coming here because the time difference is 8 hours to Switzerland, and so you can imagine it's tough. But anyway, let's get started with the presentation. The topic I want to talk about is really related to innovation and how innovation, in fact, really makes it necessary that we have very strong regulatory systems. But before entering, now let me see. Oh, maybe. Okay. Before going in more detail into it, let me get started the presentation with a slide from Mike Ward from WHO. You may have seen eventually before, and I like it a lot because in reality it reflects practically the situation of 3/4 of the agencies we have eventually here in Latin America and also on a global basis. And in fact, really asking the question, what would you do in that case, and you find the description below, clearly leads us the way, what about regulatory system strengthening? But why it is so important right now? Because industry really is quite productive, and there are new modalities that will come up in the very near future, and these systems have to deal with. We are talking about CAR-T, we are talking about combination, gene therapy, etc. Think about it. In the moment, more than 7,000 drugs on a global basis are under development in various disease areas. But it's not only the sheer number. I don't know what's happening now. It's not only the sheer number, it's also the way these drugs are developed. While in former time, eventually, we were developing drug for colon cancer, we were developing drug for lung cancer, for skin cancer. The new way of developing drug will mean that you develop a drug against a certain genetic aberration. And it doesn't matter whether the tumor is growing in the lung, on the skin, or in the column. That also means that the way of the clinical studies we are doing will change completely. These days we are talking about basket, about umbrella trials, really moving away from the classical phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical studies. We are treating a certain genetic aberration. And that also translates then to an increase in the whole efficiency of our R&D efforts. Because you can imagine, if you clearly can genetically identify a tumor where the drug will work, this clearly leads to a very high efficiency. And not only this, it also really leads to the fact that eventually you have to expose less patients to a drug in your control arm. Because overall the studies will be smaller because the drugs are getting more and more effective. And the response you measure will be much higher. Are we ready for that? That also is related to regulatory system strengthening, receiving all of this innovation. What are the consequences of all of this? As said before, the classical phase 1, 2, 3 trials, they will change. We will have faster development timelines. The clinical experience we are establishing is getting tighter. And what are enablers in regulatory system that will help to bring through this innovation. One very important enabler clearly is accelerated approval pathways. And here in practice, pathways that allow for rolling submission, that allow for the evaluation of a companion diagnostics in parallel, that allow for proper management of post-approval commitment, that allow for CMC flexibility. Also, robust pharmacovigilance system will be much more important in the future. Efficient life cycle management, because you can imagine if you have tighter, if you have faster timelines in the development, a lot of the work you normally would do pre-approval will shift into the post-approval space. Life cycle management, and we talked already yesterday a bit about it, post-approval will become more and more important in the future. How does a good regulatory system look like that really would be ready to receive all of that innovation? And here you have an example, because as an industry, of course, we also were thinking about it. You clearly have still the standard pathway, because there still will be drug that will develop into according to a classical procedure. But then you also need expedited pathway that really allow for expedited submissions and allow the receipt of expedited data sets. Ideally, that should be coupled with reliance element in order to make available these drugs as fast as possible to the patients. I also said before, pharmacovigilance is key and will be even more important in the future, because also here, if you have accelerated development timelines, of course, that means more has to be put in that space as well with respect to data generation. Unfortunately, if we look at the reports that are out there, for example from LATAM, we are doing very, very poor when it comes to pharmacovigilance here in the region. Here I have a couple of highlights that were presented during the recent ICTRA meeting in Dublin. And here, if you look, for example, in general, for low and middle income countries, the reporting is very, very poor. And we have to get much better on that. And there are proposals out there. You may have heard about the SSS principles that recently have been developed by WHO, smart safety surveillance. That means you slowly build up your pharmacovigilance capability in a certain country by eventually identifying certain pilot projects where you focus your pharmacovigilance effort. You work tightly together with industry. You leverage other available resources, etc., etc. WHO has built up very nice guidelines on that, how that actually should be implemented. The other point I really want to come back is life cycle management. Yesterday, discussing reliance, a couple of times it came up. Okay, reliance, important when we approve new drugs, but also important when we have to evaluate changes to manufacturing processes, when we have to evaluate changes of the label. And guidance is there. You only have to grab it. It's around. It's ready for implementation. And I think it should be implemented in each and every country, especially if we look for biologics. Recently, WHO came up with a really great guideline on that. That brings me to my conclusions here. While I think there are really encouraging efforts in the region, following the establishment of biologic regulations during the recent year, we have seen a lot of progress here in LATAM. Today, practically each and every country has implemented specific regulations for biologics. We have the CRS, and later on we will hear more about it, really as a flagship in the region of collaborative regulatory decision-making. Implementing pilots for reliance. Yesterday I made a strong point with respect to piloting these projects. We see it in Brazil, where they are running a pilot project, and we also see it implemented in other small countries. But there is still a need for getting further with these accelerated pathways. We really should continue the piloting of reliance pathways in more countries. We really should follow the SSS recommendation for pharmacovigilance, because this will be at the long run the only way forward to come to proper systems. And last but not least, don't give up in the alignment with globally accepted regulation when you build up your own regulatory system. And that's my very last slide, and I have here a citation from a guy I really admire a lot, and this is Dr. Tedros from WHO, I have to say. And he was invited to the Global Health Summit that actually took place last week in Berlin. And here in his speech, he made the following remark. So fragmentation, duplication, and inefficiency are undermining process. And we have a choice. We can keep doing what we are doing, but we must accept that outcomes will be the same. And what I really like here, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. I think he is absolutely right in saying this. And this is why we need innovation and disruption. We really need disruption in many cases, not just for developing new products, but also for developing new ways of delivering these products. So don't get trapped in too many things to do. Sometimes it's really good to make a step back and eventually take the help that is offered. Thanks very much.
Aquí hemos finalizado las intervenciones de la perspectiva de la industria. Nos han hablado de acceso, de reliance, nos han hablado de desarrollo de autoridades fortalecidas. Conforme una autoridad se desarrolla también la industria, también sobre innovación, nuevas terapias, farmacovigilancia, sobre el derecho a la salud universal y al acceso, y a poder trabajar en pro de realizar actividades cada vez más expeditas en busca de los nuevos retos, de las nuevas formas farmacéuticas y nuevas terapias. Continuamos con la visión de las autoridades reguladoras e invito al podio a la doctora Marta Rosales Granera, de Nicaragua.
Buenas tardes a todos los miembros de la Organización Panamericana de la Salud, a las autoridades reguladoras de nivel de Centroamérica y a la industria farmacéutica, laboratorios e innovadores. Seré breve en realidad porque había preparado muchas láminas, las disminuí, pero parece que todavía no me va a dar tiempo. Solo quiero que me permitan decirles sobre cómo está la Autoridad Reguladora General de Nicaragua, y es que está conformada por varias direcciones específicas. Al mismo tiempo tenemos el Departamento de Toxicología, la Comisión Nacional de Energía Atómica, tenemos también dispositivos médicos, alimentos, auditoría médica, las normas que se aplican a nivel de todos los hospitales y que regula todos los servicios de salud, como también participamos en la licitación, en las compras de licitaciones, porque la Dirección de Farmacia pertenece a la Comisión de Compras de Adquisiciones. También autorizamos las importaciones, lo menciono porque de esta forma que la autoridad reguladora está compactada nos ha permitido llevar un buen control en todas las importaciones, en los registros sanitarios, en las licitaciones, que nos han permitido llevar un buen control en la calidad, seguridad y eficacia. Porque antes de que se distribuya a todos los servicios de salud, de que dan asistencia a la población, se hacen los análisis, los cuales muchas veces no cumplen y son rechazados. Tomando en cuenta, ¿verdad?, entonces vamos a entrar en la formación de cómo se vino integrando. Va a ser rápido esto, ¿verdad?, porque no me va a dar tiempo, para llegar hasta Unión Aduanera, cómo se vino integrando todo el proceso y de todos los países centroamericanos para formar la Unión Aduanera, ¿verdad? Entonces comenzaron con el 13 de diciembre con el Tratado de Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua y Costa Rica, que ahí se lo comieron. Entonces de ahí surgió la formación en esta época del Mercado Común Centroamericano. El 13 de diciembre de 91 se constituyó lo que es el SICA, el Sistema de Integración Centroamericano, que está conformada por todos los países centroamericanos, además Panamá, República Dominicana y Belice. En ello el SICA trabaja la parte política de los países, los proyectos, los programas, con el objetivo de tener que se implemente la paz, el desarrollo de los países. Después vino un impasse y en el 93 se retomó el protocolo del Tratado General de Integración Económica, donde surge la Secretaría de Integración Económica, que es SIECA, que es la que lleva la parte técnica y administrativa de toda la integración de Unión Aduanera. Como vemos ya la consolidación, tenemos Unión Aduanera, el mercado común, que es para facilitar los bienes a nivel de todos los territorios de la región. La integración se va consolidando, la zona libre de comercio, que esto va relacionado con aduana, con los aranceles, los impuestos, con el objetivo de que surjan con mayor facilidad y tengan acceso de todas las mercancías que se comercializan en los 5 países de la región, con disminuir los impuestos, lo cual pues ustedes saben que todo esto ha sido muy engorroso en los tratados de la Unión Aduanera, por lo que ha habido muchas discusiones. Yo me voy a referir en el campo del convenio marco del establecimiento de Unión Aduanera, que ya es donde caen todos los países de la región centroamericana. El 12 de diciembre de 2017 se suscribió el convenio marco, en donde se fue el desarrollo gradual, progresivo y contempla la siguiente etapa, que es la promoción de circulación de los bienes, convergencia normativa, donde se armonizan todas las normas, todos los reglamentos que da, pues, que son la aplicación que han tenido los países que la conforman. De ahí vamos con el marco de negociación de unión aduanera. Tiene la presidencia pro tempore, que la ejercen los países centroamericanos, que es el SICA. De ahí tenemos el COMIECO, que es los consejos de ministros de integración económica, y está, que es el organismo que lleva la coordinación, la armonización de todo lo que ejecutan los subgrupos de los diferentes comités que pertenecemos, ya sea de medicamentos, alimentos, y después sigue la auditoría de integración, que están en el Ministerio de Comercio, porque eso pues cada país tiene su propio nombre. En el caso de nosotros se llama Ministerio de Comercio, de Fomento, Industria, de Exportación e Importaciones. Entonces tenemos los grupos técnicos, después están los subgrupos, que es donde nosotros se trabajan por equipos, si es el subgrupo de medicamentos, el subgrupo de alimentos, el subgrupo de aduana, donde ven los impuestos, y así sucesivamente. De ahí vienen las normativas que se han armonizado como 77 reglamentos centroamericanos, lo que le compete a la región en la parte de medicamentos, que es pues lo que nos interesa en estos momentos, son el reglamento de los requisitos de los medicamentos, más para reconocimiento mutuo como para registro nuevo. Tenemos de ahí los reglamentos de verificación de la calidad, de estudio de estabilidad, de validación de métodos, el proyecto de etiquetado, que todo esto conforma a la buena práctica de manufactura en los laboratorios. Eso es muy importante con su guía, que a estas alturas ya se están implementando. Entonces todo esto es con el objetivo de garantizar la calidad, seguridad y eficacia de los medicamentos. Los desafíos que teníamos con esto de la integración económica centroamericana es el reconocimiento del acceso a los medicamentos como un derecho humano en común para la población centroamericana, facilitar las rutas para la convergencia regulatoria relacionada con los medicamentos y productos afines, la formulación de propuestas técnicas que garanticen la disponibilidad y seguridad de los usuarios de los medicamentos, la cooperación entre la autoridad reguladora. Después, de ahí tenemos los retos de integración económica centroamericana, que es la armonización y convergencia de las políticas económicas, establecimiento de normas y estándares que promueven la convergencia en el desarrollo de los países de la región, fortalecimiento de la institucionalidad de integración económica, la homologación de la normativa necesaria para el perfeccionamiento de unión aduanera y promoción e impulso de la facilitación del comercio y libre comercio, que es lo que le decíamos, que está el mercado común centroamericano, las zonas libres. En los retos y perspectivas de la integración económica es la mayor competitividad ante los mercados internacionales, cumplir con los acuerdos alcanzados con la Unión Europea y la especialización de los recursos humanos y desarrollo tecnológico. Con la parte de Unión Europea, ya Nicaragua ya ha aceptado reconocimientos mutuos, tanto de medicamentos como alimentos desde el año pasado. Eso se aplica y tenemos, sobre todo más en alimentos, ha habido reconocimiento mutuo con la Unión Europea. O sea que en ese punto nosotros ya vamos cumpliendo. Y en la especialización de recursos humanos y desarrollo, pues la autoridad reguladora de Nicaragua ha ido avanzando en este aspecto. La experiencia obtenida de la Unión Aduanera y avances de autoridad reguladora, para mí, o mejor dicho, pues para la autoridad reguladora de Nicaragua, sentimos que la integración de unión aduanera, el objetivo era de tener una armonización de todos los requisitos, de todos los reglamentos. Más sin embargo, la experiencia que Nicaragua ha tenido es que no estamos cumpliendo con una verdadera armonización, porque cada país le ha hecho cambio a los reglamentos, lo ha ajustado de acuerdo a sus leyes, de acuerdo pues a sus políticas establecidas como gobierno, como salud pública. Entonces, en cambio Nicaragua se ha pegado 100% a los reglamentos, a cómo están establecidos. Entonces, ¿qué ha pasado? Cuando llega un reconocimiento mutuo, que es el mayor, en los mayores trámites que se hacen a nivel de Centroamérica, de la región, los rechazamos porque no hay cumplimiento. Es que me hace falta la parte del alcance del nivel 3 que se está tratando que obtenga la autoridad reguladora de Nicaragua. Esto ha sido debido a la planta de vacuna Medicina, que es de Rusia, y donde Nicaragua en estos momentos, allá a partir de marzo del próximo año, va a tener los primeros lotes de liberación de la producción de las vacunas. Y para esto, pues, ha alcanzado los módulos de todos los niveles, de tanto requisitos de medicamentos como sobre todo lo del laboratorio de control de calidad. Todos estos han sido capacitados gracias al apoyo de la Organización Panamericana de la Salud, como el CEDMED, que hasta aquí está el doctor Pérez Cristian, que nos ha dado todo el apoyo para capacitar a todo el personal. Ha ido a Rusia para la capacitación de vacuna y liberación de lote, como en Cuba. Han venido también a capacitarnos a nivel pues, ya de la autoridad reguladora de Nicaragua. Y eso es lo que va a impactar, porque la planta de vacunas es la primera que va a haber en Centroamérica y con varias vacunas de fabricación en un futuro. Ahorita la que se va a fabricar es para la influenza y en estos momentos está el acompañamiento de la autoridad de Cuba para la liberación del lote y está en la certificación toda esta semana para ya actualizarla. Es un edificio que cumple con todos los requisitos, es una belleza cómo quedó, todo lo trajeron de Rusia. Y pues es un logro para nuestro gobierno que siempre se ha interesado en dar una gratuidad a la población de la salud y también pues proyectarse hacia al exterior, pues el comercio hacia el exterior. Pues no pensé que fuera tan… Pero ve.
¿El tiempo de la doctora?
Pues eso es lo que no me dio tiempo realmente de hacer la exposición como yo esperaba, pues por el tiempo que fue bien corto. Pero sí, pues un orgullo de mi gobierno haber cumplido, tener una fábrica de vacunas de San Petersburgo, porque la mayor parte son los técnicos de Rusia, como también de los laboratorios de Cuba, mientras el personal va fortaleciéndose cada vez más. Esperamos pues alcanzar el nivel 3, que ahora en noviembre viene la evaluación, cumplimos con todo, farmacovigilancia que cada día está más fuerte, con personal, en los registros somos muy exigentes, siento y puedo estar segura que trabajamos transparentemente al dar los certificados, tenemos todo en línea, de registro nuevo, renovaciones, cambio por registro, de todos los productos de medicamentos, cosméticos, productos higiénicos, los trámites de los permisos de los estupefacientes, todo, y eso nos ha ahorrado tiempo y le puedo decir, tarda 30 días para dar respuesta a los registros de medicamentos, también está en línea el reconocimiento mutuo y eso nos ha increíble cómo descongestionado y estamos en tiempo en todo. Bueno, no sé, eso es todo, pues, Ya no me dieron chance.
Okay. Gracias a la doctora Rosales.
Es la planta, esa es la planta de vacuna, excelente, muy linda. Y este es el hospital Fernando Vélez Pay, con todo, nada que envidiarle a los países de Centroamérica, con todos los aparatos de tecnología de punta y todo es digitalizado. Es una belleza, pues la gente que lo ha llegado a conocer se queda asustado, pues que a pesar de todo, el gobierno se ha preocupado por ir mejorando la atención a la población y así habrán otros hospitales mucho más grandes que este Fernando Vélez Pay. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I would like to invite Dr. Virginia Asin Osberg from CARFA. You have 10 minutes.
I'll do my best. Good afternoon. Let me start by thanking the organizers for this opportunity to talk a little bit about the CRS. And I want to take the opportunity to also thank the organizers for a beautiful evening yesterday with the musicians. I so much enjoyed. Everybody thought I was standing by myself and that I was maybe like that wallflower standing by herself, but I was enjoying three beautiful guys playing music out of, you know, just being musicians and playing the violin, and I really enjoyed it. I couldn't think of a better way of winding down after a full day yesterday. So thank you for this opportunity. This is an exciting opportunity for me myself, having just recently been exposed to the whole world of pharmaceutical regulation. And I'm going to share with you the experience that we have had with CRS in the past 1.5, almost 2 years. Just to give a little background, in 2014, the Ministers of Health of the Caribbean took a decision about regulation of medicine, and that led to the establishment of the CRS. But then the CRS needed a house, and with the Caribbean Public Health Agency being a very unique public health agency in the region, it was also decided that the best way to position CRS was to house it at the Caribbean Public Health Agency. So hence my involvement as the Director, Surveillance, Disease Prevention and Control of the Caribbean Public Health Agency. The Caribbean has inherent regulatory challenges, and the challenges are related to at least two major categories. One is related to small populations. CARFA, the Caribbean Public Health Agency, serves 24 member states. And those 24 member states range from very small islands like Saba, I bet many of you haven't even heard about that, with a population of 1,500 persons, to, of course, member states such as Haiti with almost 10 million persons. But we have many small populations, and with small populations, we have the challenges with few staff and with also lack of few technical persons. So technical capacity also is one of the challenges that we face, and specifically when it comes to regulation. A second major challenge is, because of that small scale, we also have small market. So there are small market challenges that we face in our region. And the small market is also because of small volumes. if you have a population with only 1,500 persons or maybe 5,000 persons, it isn't very interesting for the pharmaceutical industry to sell products to such a small market. Either you have to sell very expensive drugs to make a handsome profit, or you need a fast volume, good volume, to be able to also make your profit. And in addition to that, there are other challenges. The agencies themselves, so the pharmaceutical agents, they are not represented in the small countries. Usually you have intermediaries that are involved in the whole process of making drugs available. And those will be then the importers, the distributors. So there are intermediary actors also in the market, which brings with it that an importer or a distributor not necessarily has to be familiar with regulation or even used to regulation. And then there is the question of user fees. The decreased appetite of paying user fees. And just to give you an indication, user fees, although they are very low, $50 to around $100 per drug, it's also what they are maybe willing to pay if you look at all the additional layers of barriers that they will meet when making drugs available in the different countries. As one of the solutions, or as a solution to that, the Caribbean community developed the Caribbean Pharmaceutical Policy, and as an extension to that, also the CRS, so that the CRS can be the regulatory system for the Caribbean countries, and not only the CARICOM countries, but the Caribbean countries. The CRS works with a very small, very slim unit. We have 2 technical officers, one on a junior level and one on a senior level, that are actively involved in reviewing of dossiers. And then we have, in collaboration with PAHO, also a technical advisor who works very close with us on a daily basis to make sure that the work that has to be done by the regulatory system is also done. And although we started maybe doing the operational work in 2017, we didn't gain the results by frog leaps. I think we can safely say we did baby steps, but it was steady growth. And some of the results that we can already tick off now on the list of achievements are that from April 2017 to date, more than 50 dossiers have already been submitted. And from the dossiers that have been submitted, 21 products were recommended. And of those products, we had HIV, cholera medicine, cholera vaccine, reproductive health medicine. So those were products that are recommended, and I think it is also good to say that all were the WHO pre-qualified essential medicine, and the average time of reviewing the dossiers was 60 days. So also I think a good return time in reviewing the dossiers. Other results are also that 31 products are registered in Guyana and Jamaica. And what we also now have achieved in Guyana is that Guyana requires CRS as one pathway for important products. And also with the OECS, we noticed that the OECS has now also decided that they will require CRS recommendations for HIV tenders in 2019. Gradual, the interest is sparking, so we have to make the effort in making sure that more of the Caribbean countries sign up and work with CRS. I think one of the results that is also worth to mention is that with through the Fiji CAREP, we were also able to register over 160 reports about substandard and falsified medicine. And in Guyana, the system was even able to identify one unregistered falsified medicine, and that led also to prosecution of, because of that finding. This slide shows the Trinidad case to prove that CRS is also, also has the possibility to offer monetary value to countries. And this slide is a proof of that. Last year, in 2017, 7 CRS recommended products were offered for national tender in Trinidad by a local supplier. And of these 7 medicines, 5 were less expensive per unit than the lowest price per unit the year before. And the time is up. I'm almost done. And the advantage was that there was it was shown that the monetary value was ranged between 8% and 28%. There are some persistent challenges that we have and that we will have to face, and we hope to tackle them and solve them in the coming year. I already alluded to that we have to work towards member state uptake, that more members start using it. We, of course, have to be cognizant of the principles that were mentioned yesterday when working with reliance, because CRS is a reliance-driven procedure. So we have to also be cognizant of when we reach out to the member states and work with the member states, that we also take all those principles in consideration. But also for the business market, it is important that we start looking at incentives for the business market also to register in our countries. What is our overarching vision? That brings us to the Sustainable Development Goal 3.3.8 that states that we should achieve access to safe, effective, quality, and affordable essential medicine and vaccines for all. So that is the overarching vision. And the future for CRS, what we see is increased access, reduced cost, easy for industry through a shared approach to regulatory capacity building appropriate to the CARICOM single market and economy. Thank you. Slightly over time.
Thank you. Thank you. Nos han hablado de la perspectiva centroamericana, la historia del Caribe, y hoy vamos a ver la perspectiva de Europa con el doctor Martin Harvey.
Okay, so I'm going to be a bit radical. I'm taking the microphone away from the stand. What I've been asked to do is to give 2 examples, following on from what Virginia's been talking about, how within a system we have met some of the challenges that Virginia's just been talking about, and Charlie will talk about straight after me, in terms of within a reliance system. And the 2 things I'm going to talk about is how do we share the workload and build capacity and train assessors, and those are the things I'm going to focus on now. So for those of you who don't really fully know the European medicines system, I'm going to give you a 5-second course, which is that there is a committee with all the member states around the table. 2 of the people around the table are chosen as rapporteur and co-rapporteur to do the work on behalf of everybody else. So the EU system is a reliance system in that sense. So there's a rapporteur and a co-rapporteur who lead the assessment work on behalf of everybody else. Clearly, from listening to the other colleagues, there are different sizes. Within the European Union, just as we have seen in the Bajo region, there are member states who are big, who are well-resourced, have lots of experts, and there are national agencies that are small, have less resource and less expertise. So, just to make you show what that looks like, you'll see on this chart that the EU system is reliant on a small number of member states. So, just to walk you through this chart here, and this is why I took the microphone away, by the way. You'll see that there is about 5 or 6 member states who do the bulk of the work, who take on the most of the workload on behalf of the rest of the EU member states, the EU system. So there are these 6 here. I'm not going to tell you which countries they are, by the way. Okay, so you can try during the coffee break to get an answer from me, but I may not tell you. So you've got 5 or 6 who do the bulk of the work. You've got a fair number here who do some. And there are all sorts of reasons for this. These agencies here are probably full-service agencies. They have a lot of resource, a lot of expertise across the whole therapeutic fields, across the whole areas of expertise. And maybe some of these agencies here have said, we're going to specialize in a particular therapeutic area. And so they say, we will do the assessment work for this area on behalf of everybody else. So people change and they offer their own expertise to the European system in the reliance system we have. And then there are these member states down here who perhaps do 1 or 2 assessment reports. And then right at the very end, you'll see there are 5 or 6 member states who have not yet taken a leadership role. Will it mess up the camera angle if I walk across the other stage? Okay, well, I won't waste time. So, this is the rapporteurship, the people who take the lead. But there's a whole number of people who take co-rapporteurship, who work and also contribute to the work, to the assessment work. And you'll notice amongst the big 5 or 6, they're still taking the lion's share of the work on behalf of everybody else. But for those of you who are not colorblind, I'm colorblind, by the way, and I've realized this is a really bad combination of colors. You'll see here in the middle, there is a number of member states who are taking on co-rapporteurships, who aren't taking the lead, but are prepared to take the second co-rapporteurship position. And in many cases, they're doing this as part of their own capacity building. So they're relying on a co-rapporteur from a larger member state, and they are being the co-rapporteur and, in a sense, working with them. And so the European system, we share the workload, but we also have built into the process an opportunity and a process to build capacity and to train. So I could go on talking this for a long, long time. But we still have all of these countries down here, from about here onwards, who have still not done either rapporteurship or co-rapporteurship. So how do we get them to engage in the European Union system? And by the way, can I say this is the first time I have been in a meeting this whole year and no one has used the Brexit word. The reason I'm bringing it up is because with the United Kingdom leaving, there is a significant amount of competence that will no longer be available to the European Medicines Agency. And so we need to engage the other agencies to make sure that they can also contribute. So what have we done? We have developed the idea of a multinational assessment team. I'm not going to use the acronym because the interpreters will go mad if I talk about MNATs. But these multinational assessment teams are part of a way we have to bring in member states who have not yet had the opportunity to contribute. And what it means, as a random example, if we have Spain as the rapporteur and Portugal as the co-rapporteur, these are these are agencies with a significant amount of expertise. But what we can do is also bring in agencies who have not yet participated and have experts from different countries come in and form a single assessment team. And it's part of spreading the engagement and building capacity. And it may be that there is some interesting points there for you to think about as you work towards either the CRS or within the PAHO region broader. We do this not just for the initial marketing authorization, and thinking about what we said yesterday about post-authorization, we are also doing this for post-authorization. And so we're involving them doing these multinational teams for pharmacovigilance, for the safety and efficacy post-authorization assessments. We're also doing it for scientific advice, so the development of medicines, so making sure that these multinational assessment teams can see the full life cycle of medicines development from when they're being in the test tube in the laboratory right through to use in patients and onwards. And since Virginia raised the issue of money and user fees, there is payment for this. And so the assessors from the member states who are not rapporteur or co-rapporteur, they get a share of the user fees. So there is money for it. Okay, the next thing is about training. So for those of you, I know you were all listening to Analea's presentation of the PAHO, the update on what the PAHO has been doing since the last meeting. And Analea was talking about the development of curriculum and training within PAHO. And we've been doing more or less the same sort of thing. In order to make sure that all assessors within the European Union, so that's 28 countries of the European Union, plus Iceland, Norway, and Liechtenstein, that's 31 countries, that the assessors from all of these countries and the inspectors from all these countries are working to the same educational level. They understand the guidelines in the same way. They understand their job in the same way, how they approach the assessment. We have a network training platform. So every agency that has its own training courses will offer places to agencies in the rest of the European Union. And we do this through a single portal, which is managed with us and the members and the heads of agencies. And so we can invite people to meetings and trainings, either face-to-face or online, or through various other mediums. And so we do this to help, as I said at the bottom, to improve the quality of assessors' work and the consistency and the efficiency of work. None of us have got time to waste. So if we can make sure that everybody's working to the same standards, it's a much more efficient system. So in terms of how many, we've actually developed quite a few training courses. And so you'll see there, I mean, it may or may not be of particular interest. What is of interest, though, is the bottom figure here. And we have 2,668 experts and assessors were registered and participated in courses in 2017. And that's a lot of experts. And these are courses ranging across the whole gamut of what we would expect assessors to be trained on and inspectors. And the other bit we've been working on is curriculum. So Analea mentions the curricula that you are developing within PAHO. So we have developed so far 6 curricula. I won't read them out. And we're currently developing 2 more on preclinical assessment and product information. The information to patients, the information to healthcare professionals. Incredibly important. So I just wanted to share those 2 examples of what we're doing in the European Union to improve our reliance system, to improve the common approach within the 31 countries, and to make sure that we are operating to a system that delivers robust and scientifically sound outcomes for patients. Thank you.
I would like to invite Dr. Charles Preston to...
I've sabotaged the system for you.
Yes, back and forth.
Okay, is this thing on? Okay. So we'll start with the poll. How many people actually read the concept paper? I'm just kidding. You don't have to. Okay, that's so this session is going to be about that concept paper on small states. And I think there's going to be some interesting stuff in here for us to talk about. And I think we have another hour after this, but I think my presentation is probably going to eat into that because it's probably going to go a little longer than 10 minutes. Maybe it'll be 11 minutes, but Yeah, I don't know why I'm looking at Mary Lou's, but okay. So let me just give a little bit of a context for this paper and why PAHO as a secretariat decided to write this paper. So we were getting requests, increasing numbers of requests for guidance on what regulatory functions we should put in place in small states and markets who had limited resources. I think this goes to Annalia's point where she was talking about Miriam Narendorf from Suriname saying, just tell me what I have to do. And I think this concept paper is trying to get at what are the things that you absolutely have to do. And we also have some internal data that shows that there is some unfinished work for the region, and I'll show that in a couple of minutes. We have the regional and we have the global resolutions. We have the SDG goal, which Dr. Asen mentioned, that says everybody should have access to quality medicines. And then we've also been having this conversation about how can member states do more with less, and I think, what are some of the efficiencies? So all of that is kind of pulled together in this concept paper. These are some of the data that we put together to try to show the state of regulatory capacity in the region. And if you go over to the green box, that's actually all of the national regulatory authorities of regional reference in the Americas. So that's 8 countries. That's 23% of the countries in the Americas. And then you have this other box in blue that are states that have the legal bases and organizational structures to have a comprehensive regulatory system. So that's 37% or 13 countries. Then you have another group that's in the orange that they have some legal bases and they have some organizational structures to have a regulatory system. And then you have the red group that they don't currently have the legal or the organizational structures in place to have a regulatory system, essentially don't have regulatory systems. So 20%, 7 countries. And I think you could look at this as a kind of, you could be concerned if you looked at it in a certain way, and you could say, well, 40%, because remember the last 2 boxes were 20% each, or 14 out of 35 of the countries in the region have either some or have no legal basis and organizational structure for a regulatory system. And this is only considering countries. It's even maybe more of a challenging situation for territories, which is another frontier, I think, after this. But if you want to be a little bit more rosy about the outlook of things, you could say that 82% of the population of the Americas is actually covered under a national regulatory authority of regional reference. There's about 1 billion people in the Americas, and about 82% of them are in one of the countries with these authorities. And it's really only 2% of the population that fall into this category of some or no legal bases and organizational structures. And so it's a small percentage, but out of 1 billion people, that's 18 million people that I think we need to try to focus on. These are some interesting graphs, and we tried to look at the data a little bit to try to understand more about how population was related to regulatory capacity, and as luck would have it, there was actually a pretty interesting association. So this graph is looking at population, and the green group here is that group of national regulatory authorities of regional reference. So they tend to be the group that has the highest population in their countries. And then you see kind of each group kind of down to the red group at the end, that group has the smallest populations of countries. So seems to be an interesting association between the state of regulatory capacity and the population in the country, which makes sense. It's why we're saying small states. And then this graph here is saying, what is the absolute GDP of the country? And again, it's a very similar kind of correlation. The higher absolute GDP, That's the group in green right there. Those tend to be the national regulatory authorities of regional reference. And then the group in red, they tend to have the smallest. And I think it makes sense in terms of population and resources that these would be the kinds of trends we see. And just to say, it's not determinative. It doesn't mean that you are sentenced to having challenges with regulatory capacity or forever. But it's to say that I think the folks that have smaller populations and smaller GDPs, they just face more inherent challenge in doing strong regulation. So that's also why I think we want to try to propose different ways of thinking about how do you cover all of the necessary functions. And so that's also part of this concept paper. I think Dr. Austin read this paper. She read this paper, or we've been in great communication, because she basically talked about all these concepts here, where we talk a little bit about, why do small states have limited regulatory capacity, small populations, small markets, that, all of the kind of things that she spoke about as being challenges. And then it ultimately kind of ends up being a very vicious cycle of a regulator and industry mismatch in terms of the regulator isn't maybe performing as well as the industry would like. And then the industry isn't really complying as much as the regulator would like because they're not that interested in the market. And then it just kind of maybe sometimes creates informal pathways where folks kind of just go around the regulator, and that's what we don't want to try to have happen. We included this slide because it's a kind of true north of where folks maybe want to be with covering all of the different recommended regulatory functions. And then we created this slide, which is, okay, but what's more realistic to do if you're a small state? What are the functions that you either have to do yourself or you do through reliance? And if you notice, there's a couple of the categories that are in white. These are recommended functions, but we say in the paper that maybe you don't have to do those. It depends more on your local context. So we say the essential regulatory functions are, you definitely got to have the regulatory frameworks in place. You got to have a registration and marketing authorization system for sure. And we give some little bullets on the types of things that you should think about putting in place for each of those. You definitely need to license your establishments, including your wholesalers, importers, warehouse, distributors, that type of thing. And then market surveillance and control is key. And I think we're starting to come to a kind of consensus. This isn't a function that you can really do reliance on. There's nobody else who's having visibility on your market. It's just you that can identify bad products on your market. So that includes doing the importation and customs control, so that's part of it. And then vigilance. You've got to do vigilance in adverse events. You got to be able to cover that. And then finally, we said regulatory inspections, but not inspections of manufacturing plants. That would depend on whether you have local manufacturing or not, or whether you want to have local manufacturing. And maybe it's not necessarily the best strategy for the country if you're a very small country to do to have local manufacturing, but it's a sovereign decision. The ones that we said maybe you don't necessarily need to do would be clinical trials oversight. Maybe you don't have any clinical trials in your country. Laboratory testing. Laboratories are super expensive, and sometimes they can be used to test every product that's coming through the market. Those are things that we wouldn't necessarily recommend. So maybe you don't need a national laboratory, but you need access to a laboratory so that if you do have a bad product on the market, you can get it the appropriate testing. And then lot release is also something that depends on whether you need to do. So ultimately, I think we've been talking about all the efficiencies that we can employ to kind of do more with less. And regionalization is something that I think we've spoken a lot, but there are a couple of key pieces to regionalization that help small markets. One is that you're pooling the market together, you're leveraging resources, And you're harmonizing standards, so you're giving industry one set of standards and one entry point into the market. So I think that's nice. Reliance, a subset of that is fast track, which is a part of Reliance, and work sharing. So all of these efficiencies we talk about in the paper. And then we have the recommendations. And we say, we hope that the Pandra conference can adopt, and we can maybe make some modifications depending on, but we hope that folks will agree that we would strengthen regulatory systems in small states with limited resources according to the frameworks in this concept paper and according to the frameworks in the regional resolution CD50.R9 and the global resolution. That we would encourage national regulatory authorities of regional reference to help support regulatory system strengthening in small states according to the resolution in the region. And I think this is a kind of an interesting one, that we would request PAHO to develop toolkits for small states and markets with limited resources to implement what we would call these essential functions. We've gotten a lot of requests from some of the very, very smallest states in the Americas about, okay, well, I don't have a registration system. What do you recommend? What do I need to do? What do I need to put in place to have a registration? So what are the requirements? What are the basic sets of requirements that I need to have? And to be honest with you, that really hasn't been developed yet. So I think that's something that we think would be a really nice outcome from this document. And then finally, call on the global health and development stakeholder community and industry to support regulatory system strengthening in small states and markets with limited resources. And I think industry can play a really big role in helping us use these more efficient mechanisms and get them up and running. I think we've heard a lot about the Caribbean regulatory system and some of the challenges. What's the role that industry can play to make it a more effective and successful mechanism? So I think that's it, and then I'm not sure what happens now, actually, to be honest with you.
Gracias al doctor Preston por la nota conceptual. Hoy procedemos a abrir los micrófonos que ustedes tienen en los pasillos. Solicitamos que cuando hagan preguntas, sean preguntas puntuales, dirigidas para poder cumplir el horario. Para fortalecer el debate, queremos lanzar algún tipo de introducción, como qué podemos hacer como autoridades, como industria, para poder tener una regulación eficiente, regional, como son los modelos del Caribe o Centroamérica, y también qué hacer cuando hay países que son pequeños, con mercados pequeños, con recursos limitados, para poder fortalecer la regulación en las áreas. Se abre el micrófono, por favor, el que quiera participar, párese en el micrófono, identifíquese y haga las preguntas. Go ahead, no hay preguntas. Este tema es sumamente clave para el fortalecimiento y desarrollo de nuestros países. If you would have a question to close. Yes? Yes. But there are no questions. Bueno, si no hay preguntas.
One question. Is it?
Yes, it's
No, it's on. Yeah. So thanks. That was. I think that there is no questions because it's too much information. I don't know if people can digest all that and pull a couple of questions. I think that if you open this and leave it open, there's going to be a lot of questions that are coming.
Can you talk? Can you
No,
please
you can't hear?
speak
Okay.
in the
I
microphone?
was saying that I think that there are not questions yet because there was a lot of information, very important information, and people are still digesting what you said, but I'm going to try to start with some questions. Charlie, for you. So you identify some sort of essential regulatory functions that smaller states with limited resources might prioritize some of them and some not. But I think that essentially there are three maybe smaller functions there that we're saying that this is not priority. But considering the limited resources some countries have, and we're working together in some of the small countries in the Caribbean, where we see, I think that if we say 6 of those functions are core and 3 are not, I don't know if we're adding so much in terms of guidance about what to do, what not to do, what prioritize and what not prioritize. I don't know if you have any thoughts or can be sort of further developed in the concept paper, sort of what elements within those essential regulatory functions that they have to prioritize, what can be areas where they can are more essential, that they focus, and which ones no. If we can further dissect what are within, for example, registration and marketing authorization or regulatory inspection, Department of Inspection, I think that it's something very challenging for them. And even if they might be focusing in some areas, some others might not be seen as priorities. I don't know if there is an opportunity to go deeper in terms of that identification or where might be more essential and less essential functions within those ones that we have identified here that are high priority even for small states. And I have the sense that when you suggest that it can be the development of toolkits, it's pointing more towards that direction, but I don't know if there is an opportunity to add some of that into the concept paper. Thanks.
Yeah. Always have a hard time answering questions at the table here. Thanks, Gustavo, for the question. And my first question back is, are we in the session where we're debating this paper, or is this the sort of this, I just am clarifying. Okay, we're moving into that. Okay. I think, you know, ultimately, if you look at what's recommended, it crystallizes or distills down to 2 major pieces, I think. One is kind of what comes into the market, and that would be maybe registration or importation, and how those kind of come together, and then how do you monitor what's on the market control and surveillance, and incorporating in the vigilance piece. I think it's those 2 things, and then the toolkits piece is how do you do that in a kind of most efficient way for a very small setting? How do you set requirements that would be appropriate for a very small market where you don't want to necessarily compromise access by having too strong of requirements? I think, you know, it would have been nice to put a little bit more of those more specific kind of toolkit type things into the paper, but I think we thought that it would be better to just have a very high level kind of concept, make sure that folks are in agreement, and then maybe move forward with that as an activity that we can do over time. So I think that's a kind of one answer. I think also the functions that we said you don't necessarily have to do, don't underestimate how much work it would be to do inspections of manufacturing facilities overseas. What we're saying is that you don't necessarily have to do that unless you have some local manufacturing, and many of the countries in the region don't have that. So that's saying basically you can rely on inspectional information from other regulatory authorities. So I think that's a major efficiency. So I think that, you know, this is where the debate is coming in, but I don't think we believe you can get around having control over what comes in and what's on the market. I think you have to do those things, and you have to do them as efficiently as possible.
Le voy a pedir a la estimada audiencia que nos enfoquemos en sus pantallas, en la lámina que refiere a las recomendaciones y la nota conceptual que pretende resumir lo que hemos hablado sobre el fortalecimiento de las capacidades regulatorias, solicitándoles sus comentarios, sus recomendaciones, si hay algo que hay que incluir, algo que hay que ampliar, que podamos utilizar el tiempo restante para apoyarnos en esa lámina. Adelante.
Gracias. This is a question for Virginia as representative of the CRS. We heard...
Speak up in the mic.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a question for the representative of the CRS. We heard from the industry perspective the challenges that innovation, from Thomas, that innovative technologies poses to regulatory systems in general. We heard from Martin the experience that the European system has in joint collaboration and joint assessments, and using the joint assessment also as a tool for capacity building. And we heard from Alfredo the important role of the national regulatory authorities of reference that had in here it's the link with the suggestions, the recommendations that we have. How do you see, based on these presentations, that CRS might benefit or might mirror some of those experiences, and how do you see that the challenge of innovative technologies can be faced by small countries and small markets with the assistance of the CRS? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and I'm going to attempt to respond, but maybe Charlie can add to that if there is more to say about that. With reference to the presentations that were made over the past 2 days, I do see sufficient opportunities to take lessons learned from all of the presenters from the EMA, the EMA, but also from the other agencies, but also from countries, to learn from their experience and to see how that can translate into the CRS. CRS in itself is an innovative procedure, so we are continuously building and looking for ways how we can make CRS interesting and useful for the member states. So it's not only looking at what mechanism would be the best. I think it would be many of those. So it's reliance driven, but I think there are also elements of convergence and harmonization in it. So we will have to see how, specifically when we speak about trust and confidence. So you need to look at the different elements that are available to be able to build that into the CRS. And at the same time, take into consideration where the different countries are. So what is the situation in each and every one of those individual countries to ensure that what we offer through CRS is also applicable for them. When it comes to new technology, I think yesterday someone also, I think it was you, also made a remark about using reliance for the use of new technologies. So I do think that many of the presentations that were delivered here yesterday and today will be taken into consideration to continue to built on the program that CRS is offering, not only technically, but also in the operational procedures that has to be implemented in the different countries. I see Analia there. You wanted to add?
No, I want to ask the following question. So.
But maybe if...
The only other thing to add on the innovative technologies would just be to say, you know, we use the WHO Essential Medicine List as a screen for what products we should focus our attention on. If you have limited resources, limited staff, I mean, you should at least get quality versions of all the essential medicines done first. And there are some innovative products on the essential medicine list, so those are fair game. And then we also have a procedure where if a product is not on the essential medicine list, we have a group called TechPharm, which is the pharmaceutical body, the Pharmaceutical Advisory Committee for CARICOM, that will look at a product, look at the public health need, and determine whether that would be a good, efficient use of the CRS time to review. So I think those are some of the strategies we put in place to be sustainable and conserve resources, but also receive new technology.
Now, thank you very much and for the opportunity. If you allow me, I would like to just make a small reflection on why we get it here, because you might think this is a very, being a small number of states, and as Charlie put it, small number of population affected by this small state or limited low resources. By the way, many of these countries are considered high-income countries. It should only be concerned, and you should stop texting only if it's your small state. I would like to bring the perspective of why I think this is a concern of everybody in the room. Besides the equity and human rights and health rights and all the underlying ethical concerns that we might bring this, I'm going to bring a practical twist on this. A lot of the issues we were discussing are still challenges in the region, like falsified products, substandard products, and our lack of vigilance, or are coming in many times, have a better way of entering any of your countries if you are in a context of a non-regulatory state, a state that doesn't regulate at all. If you have very permeable borders, and you live in the context that nobody can oversee what's importing in your country, exporting, everything comes through, and those things continue to other countries. If you take a nice cruise every year, and you get sick, and you need a medicine, you want to ensure that anywhere you get, you need a good medicine. If you are the industry, and you want your product to be placed in difficult places to reach, it would be a lot easier if you kind of have a streamlined ways to get your product there, and actually to make it cost effective to travel a little bit faster, so farther in or away. So I think my point is we as a network has always been very keen on being Pan-American. We care about all that, and the fact that we marked that we have 82% of the people under a highly functional regulatory system, it's not that we say, oh, so we are fine. We need to quickly do something for the 18% that we have left. And what we are marking is that with a little effort and some direction, we're going to get there. And that's the point of having this as a plenary, because the only way of doing this is if we all help create this system in order to be a profitable area for the industry and a fair and an equitable system for the health of the people living in this country. And if you come to a vacation also for you, because we all enjoy some of these beautiful small states that we're talking about. And I may say that a lot of the countries that were in the middle two groups, that have some, but not really all, can take good lessons of the document of how to do this also, and how to use some of the efficiency. So this is the part I would like to underline why this is something that I think we should all be discussing. Sorry for taking so long. And then we think that we have to be very, very precise with the toolkit. When Charlie says, I thought, but then we thought that we didn't include it, actually he thought he should include it, I say no. And the reason is because I thought we had to do the concept first and then move into implementation and do the toolkit afterwards. But I think there's a lot of innovative stuff that we can come up, and we can come with very precise ways of doing registration, of doing pharmacovigilance, et cetera, et cetera. So just to bring that perspective of where are we here and why this should be something everybody should care about, and I think I will stop.
¿Alguien más que pueda aportar? De lo contrario,
Ariel Arias, Health Canada again. I'm curious, Charlie and all of you. I have been, or we have been accompanying the development of CRS for years, actually, helping that. And I'm curious about what I perceive as a kind of change in the scope of the activities of the CRS. And it's actually even reflected in the panel itself today. So, and let me go with my question. So this is being actually now proposed to include or to embrace innovation or innovative progress. The original idea was more focused on the essential medicine products. And I don't have anything against that. The only thing is that embracing this or enlarging the scope must be done very carefully. Why? Well, by nature itself, those innovative medicines are precisely those in which we have less knowledge. These are the new ones. We had in our discussions yesterday in the ATMP a great deal of discussions about this, the lack of proper knowledge very often on some of these things, and the difficulties and the need to actually gather proper evidence, not just on the risk, it's on the manufacturing part and on the efficacy part of that. Having said that, and you have clearly identified there, you are also saying that in order to do that, you need a very solid and support from post-marketing activities, let's call it. It's not just pharmacovigilance, it's post-market activities. That's how I would probably call that. But this is precisely one of the issues that is probably very weak in these regions as well. So, my question is, how do you really will try to put all this together? Innovation, we heard that it was even discussed as something that we need to embrace and accelerate the regulatory approval. And regulatory bodies are, yes, we accept and we feel the pressure from the public, from the healthcare professionals and all these people to do that. We also have a legal, a liability or an ethical obligation to do this in the right way. And that's why for those products, we also need to go relatively slowly. I mean, we need to ask for the evidence. And if the evidence are not there, you need to actually try to ensure that those evidence are going to be gathered either during the development or with a very well-planned monitoring of all these activities. So, again, I mean, I'm curious about all this because you have on the one hand the original idea of concentrating your efforts in essential medicine products, and now we are trying to enlarge that, and then, of course, the challenges are going to be huge or much, much important now. So I'm curious about hearing all this.
Just to say, just to give a little bit of history, I think, Ariel, you're totally right that the concept started out with generic medicines on the essential medicine list. And it actually started out with, I don't know, maybe 10 of the products that countries said they most needed. And what we realized is that when we put out a call for applications for that, with the the limited attractiveness of small markets, there were no takers. There was nobody that was willing to supply metformin at 1 cent per dose or something like that to the region. They just weren't willing to do it. So we got no application. So we said, well, maybe we need to say all of the essential medicine list is open. And there are innovative products on the essential medicine list. So there's a hepatitis C medicine, there's some cancer therapy. So that's what I mean. I certainly don't mean to like sell therapies or something like that. I mean, I'm just saying the products that are on the essential medicine list, we think that since there's already been a determination that those are vital for populations to have, those would be products that we would look at. And I think those are the ones where it's perfect for a reliance mechanism, because you can say, is it been approved in the United States or Europe or other strong regulatory authorities in the region, and then we feel more confident in them. And this is something maybe we work on with national regulatory authorities of regional references. How do we monitor those products, or how do we have access to data that you have about how those products are being tolerated in the population? So.
I also would like to make a comment on this. I think it's absolutely recognized that this is difficult, but it's to a certain extent a logical consequence. If you think about other approaches, collaborative approaches, like the ACSS, I think they also recently, so this is the collaboration between Australia, Canada, Singapore, and Switzerland, they also recently started approaching new drugs. First, they got started with generics, and now also new chemical entities. I think recently the first one also got approval there. And to me, really, the key point here is reliance. I think as long as you use reliance, you have a strong backbone behind it. And the other point I also would like to make, if you then use reliance, and we discussed this yesterday in extenso, then eventually you release resources as well, which you then can use actually to strengthen your PV system, to strengthen how you deal with post-approval commitments, etc., which are important in that context as well.
Por tiempo, la última intervención.
Esta es una intervención, una pregunta, ¿no?, más dirigida a los representantes de la industria. La nota conceptual es clara cuando especifica el problema de los países con mercados pequeños, en que básicamente la diferenciación que hay es que no es un mercado atractivo. Bien, entonces hasta para el fortalecimiento endógeno de las autoridades regulatorias, hasta para recaudar vía los aranceles que se pagan y demás, se dificulta mucho porque no tienen ingresos, porque no es atractivo el mercado. Muchas veces no, digamos, la falta de interés de la industria farmacéutica en entrar en esos mercados es lo que contribuye con la debilidad regulatoria que se está planteando, ¿no?, como para fortalecer. El último punto, bien, destaca, hace un llamado, ¿no?, a la industria farmacéutica para colaborar con el fortalecimiento de esas autoridades regulatorias en países pequeños. Puntualmente, la pregunta es cómo desde la industria farmacéutica, tanto de los laboratorios de la región como internacionales, globales, piensan que pueden pueden contribuir, pueden generar acciones concretas para realmente fortalecer estas funciones esenciales que señalaban, digamos, aún reducidas, bien, necesitan ser fortalecidas. ¿Cuáles son medidas o acciones concretas que podrían llevar adelante para colaborar con esta tarea?
In fact, yesterday night when we had the reception, we had an interesting discussion around that question. And it started discussing about some pilots that are ongoing in certain countries that try to pilot reliance. So from an industry perspective, you may not have immediately an advantage using these pathways because there may no gain in time, you know. Eventually the efforts might be even bigger in the beginning as if you would use a normal pathway. But here I clearly believe the industry also, it would be, how can I say, more difficult than to get approval at the end using this pathway. We should do it anyway in order to help the learning and the proper implementation of these reliance pathways. I think this also happened in other regions. If I think about Asia, also the Singaporean health authority, in the very beginning they started with pilot. They even did not fix timelines in the very beginning. They kept it open because they wanted to learn, you know, how far can we come, what can be the benefit at the end for us. And these are efforts also from an industry side we really should support.
Good afternoon. Douglas Rodriguez Jansen. I have two quick questions. The first will be, do you consider that the industry must be playing an important role in the education of the strengthening of the regulatory system in this kind of markets? It was related with the question that he made, what can we do? But my question is more directly to the education in the strengthening of new technologies and coming new products. I mean, that's the first question. And the second one is, when you have products, innovative products, that of course have an older treatment, when we compare, both are quality products, but one could be safer with better safety profiles than the other ones. So how is the balance in the decision when you decide which products could be more suggested in the process for acquisition or for recommendation against the new technologies? I mean, it would be, how are the considerations that you put in place to decide that we're gonna suggest this one instead of a new one that have a safetier profile or different advantages? That will be the two questions that I have. Thank you.
Maybe I can quickly take the first question, and then for the second I can leave it to the colleagues because it also relates to industry. And maybe I can answer with an example here how industry may help. And this is also related to the fact how open are regulators to accept the help of the industry. Because very often you also see there is some reluctance actually to accept the help of the industry. So a good example where it's just the opposite and which I like a lot, this is really China. If you look at the dynamics you have in China in the moment when it comes to regulatory system changes, I think there is no other country in the world where it's happening so much. They also joined recently ICH. Now, in the moment they joined ICH, what do you think the agency did? They established 22 working groups, each dedicated for each ICH guidelines and invited industry to provide training on these guidelines, you know. So this is certainly a way also industry could help, you know, to strengthen the system.
Could I put a counter position to that?
No.
We were talking yesterday and today about trust and reputation. And so I would say that actually, yes, it's interesting to have platforms to exchange information with industry, to understand where industry is developing. But I really think that when it comes to training, it is something that we should not be doing jointly together with industry. That is not to say we don't have a great deal of things to learn from industry. Please don't misunderstand me. But when it comes to us as regulators and the discussions we want to have between each other, there is a strong argument for doing that by ourselves without industry present. And a specific example, coming back to the EU Network Training Centre discussion I had at lunchtime with somebody, the training that we can do between regulators means that we can use live dossiers, real dossiers with real data that actually train the assessors how to handle a proper dossier. If you've got industry in the room, we cannot do that. We cannot share those sorts of data with industry. And I think the things that there is a real argument to say that we should be training ourselves within our own walls without industry. Within the ICH, I'm part of the ICH Management Committee. And so just to say that within ICH, we have understood the need for regulators training for both ICH members and observers, so countries that are looking to join ICH, including China, including India, that Thomas just mentioned. And we have a new subcommittee, everything's committees with regulators, isn't it? Subcommittees, working parties, whatever. We have a new training subcommittee that is deliberately setting out to put together training packages for each and every single guideline. And these are being developed within ICH and being delivered by regulators to regulators. So, Thomas, we have a great deal to learn from industry, but I think our training needs to be done between regulators.
Because I know we have 10 minutes, and I think we also just want to make sure that we focus on, just one thing is to make sure that we look at the recommendations, and I think something we want to try to get out of this session is whether folks are in agreement with the recommendations, and I think, and I'm going out on a limb here, I'm not totally sure if this is true, but I think we would open the document for comments for the next 3 weeks. So you can comment on the document, but we would potentially just adopt the recommendations that are made here at this particular session. So just also to remember that we have to do that before we leave the session right now. But then if you guys want to, yeah.
No, solamente para agregar algo a lo que se ha dicho, pero se sugirió allí en la última pregunta qué es lo que ocurre cuando se tienen dos productos habilitados desde la autoridad sanitaria. Entonces, nosotros como industria entendemos que en la medida que la autoridad sanitaria independientemente ha decidido, con el criterio que ha aplicado, que no son otras que las normas internacionales que nos guían, entonces los productos están hábiles para su prescripción. Entonces ahí hay un punto donde la industria se encuentra con la regulación y llega un momento en que la regulación y la industria se encuentran en una zona mixta, pero esa zona mixta también tiene una parte que es netamente, es decir, que es compartible, pero que hay otras dos partes que corresponden a cada una de las partes. Y ahí cierta independencia o independencia es importante que se mantenga. Ahora bien, decidido la habilitación de los medicamentos, entonces lo que entendemos es que el médico debe confiar plenamente en lo que se ha decidido. Y en este caso, aprovecho porque esto de las políticas públicas, a lo que hice referencia cuando me tocó hablar, refieren no solo a la parte regulatoria. Por ejemplo, nosotros tenemos una experiencia que se está aplicando en Brasil, que es bastante interesante, de políticas públicas integrativas entre el Estado y la industria, incluso entre la industria multinacional innovadora y la industria nacional, con el tema del desarrollo de productos biosimilares, donde hay una transferencia de tecnología desde las firmas innovadoras hacia el Estado brasileño con participación de las firmas nacionales y asegurándole al producido final, al producto final, el mercado brasileño, que por cierto que es bien interesante. Y esto habla de una suerte de complementación, de aceptación, de convivencia, y creo que es un dato a señalar, ¿no? Así como señalo esto, también tengo que decir, por ejemplo, que en mi país se ha aprobado un producto biosimilar, pero sin embargo el Estado uruguayo, luego de los estrictos controles a lo que fue sometido el producto con la normativa regulatoria que lo ampara, el producto aún no se vende, es decir, no está en la cancha realmente porque, bueno, también están aquellas batallas comerciales que se desarrollan y que de algún modo no condicen con esto que acabamos de decir, que es la interacción entre el regulador y el regulado, a los efectos de favorecer no solo que aparezcan nuevas terapias y que sean seguras, sino que cuando aparece competencia, las terapias innovadoras estén disponibles para el público para que se cumpla el objetivo primario que nos reúne, que es que haya más gente que acceda a los tratamientos de salud. Gracias.
Bueno, recordando la importancia de recibir sus comentarios, opiniones, sugerencias sobre este documento que se va a abrir próximamente a la consulta para poder tener una base sólida de cómo poder fortalecer las capacidades regulatorias entre agencias, entre regiones, entre subregiones. Sin más por el momento, quiero darle infinitas gracias a nuestros panelistas y a Binosh de Surinam por compartir esta mesa con su servidor. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Binosh.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Bueno, damos gracias a todos los panelistas, moderador y facilitador por esta sesión. Y queremos hacer un anuncio de último momento. En la agenda de hoy estaba previsto tener 15 minutos para el café, lo cual sigue manteniéndose como está establecido. Sin embargo, por temas logísticos de la división de la sala y vuelta a abrirla, vamos a hacer una inversión en la agenda, haciendo ahora, después del café, la plenaria número 6, que tiene que ver con el uso de la información en acciones de convergencia regulatoria, y posteriormente dividiremos la sala en dos, de forma de que en este lado de la sala se quede el panel relacionado con regulación de dispositivos médicos y al lado izquierdo se quede la sala relacionada con actividades de regulación de productos biológicos. ¿Ok? Entonces, les pedimos a todos rápidamente tomar su café, de preferencia recojan su café y regresen a las mesas para no extender la sesión muy tarde y que cuando nos toque discutir temas de dispositivos médicos o de biológicos estén sumamente cansados y ya no quieran escuchar de nosotros. Muchas gracias a todos. Para aquellos que aún no han traído sus presentaciones o resúmenes curriculares al grupo informático de la sala, favor adelantar el respaldo de sus presentaciones para que estén disponibles para la plenaria número 6.